Welcome to Voices from the Bench, a dental laboratory podcast. Send us an email at info@voicesfromthebench.com or look for us on Facebook at Voices from the Bench.
Elvis likes me to throw you guys for a loop every now and again. So greetings and welcome to Voices from the Bench, episode number 41. Happy New Year! Woo-hoo!
Happy New Year 2019. Can you believe it? We made it. Barely.
I know. I barely made it. I don't know about you, but I literally barely made it.
You know, what's exciting is so far so good. Usually about day 15 is when I start screwing stuff up, and then it's just all downhill from there. So
I'm just going to be a good egg all year. Just try to do the best I can and be grateful and be a good person and be a badass technician. Actually, just a badass everything.
I just hope you can make it through this episode. So let's just one thing at a time. So 2019 brings us a new year and new exciting things for Voices from the Bench. We will be recording live here in a couple weeks at Visions 21. The week after that, we got Voices of Dentistry. The month after that, we have Lab Day in Chicago. And just recently, we're hooking up to do the Dental Laboratory Association of Texas meeting in April. So super exciting stuff lined up. So make sure you check out voicesfromthebench.com to find all the links and learn about where we're going to be next.
And when we do that, Mr. Elvis, how are we going to do that? We going live, or are you going to edit all of that? What is that going to look like? Let's tell our fans.
It's recorded face-to-face, but it will be edited and played at a later date.
So if I'm possibly drinking Fireball, you're going to edit me out for my crazy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
You will sound like this.
Oh, shit.
So Vision 21 is now officially next week. You know, Barb and I are super excited. The lineup of speakers is awesome this year. So just so everyone knows, you can still register. And according to Bennett, you can just show up in Vegas the morning of the meeting and register. You know, if you're one of those people who waits to the last second.
All right.
So head over to nadl.org and make your first smart decision of 2019. So this year, we want to make sure that everybody knows that we want this podcast to benefit everybody in the industry. So if you have an announcement you'd like us to make, like a conference in your area, a CE event, a hands-on event, or anything else in our industry that will be an interest to our listeners, send us an email at info@voicesfromthebench.com. We want to know what's going on in our industry and let as many people know as possible. And if it works out, we'll have you on the show to talk more about it.
Please reach out to us. We need info. We need more guests. We're totally looking for anything that interests the industry in all skill levels.
So we continue our conversation from last week with Jim Gorgol, CDT, about the Cal Lab Association. Jim and the board have a really good meeting scheduled this February, so I suggest that after this episode, you head over to Cal Lab, which is cal-lab.org, to learn more about this great organization and yearly meeting. So let us continue with Jim Gorgol. Voices from the Bench. The interview.
Okay, we're going to do a meeting. What are we going to do? We throw out a million ideas, and our highest technical guy, Jerry Regal, gets a bunch of duct tapes a bunch of pads to the wall, and he is our highest technical guy. And we put ideas on these pads. We, over the course of, Barb, 8 to 10 hours.
Oh yeah.
We will whittle these ideas down and get a format and a theme. And at that point, in potential speakers. With those potential speakers are then assigned to board members, and we hope that they all say yes. Often they do not, and we have to go back to the drawing board in one area or another. But literally the whole Cal Lab board meeting is planned in a day.
Wow.
Yeah. But, what really helps is the feedback from the previous meeting, because we get all that, a couple months earlier, and you really have to dive into what your membership wants to hear about. And a lot of the content that we talk about at that meeting is feedback from our membership. And I think that's one of the things that keeps them coming back year after year after year is, number one, the content's great, but number two, we're bringing content that's relevant to them because we're listening to them, and we get in there and we look at theirs, we circle what we want to do, and what they want to hear about. So I think it's important to mention that.
Yes, and it obviously is successful, Barb, because 2019 will be our 93rd annual meeting.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. 93 years. Damn, that's amazing. So I know why I joined. It was my father took me from a very young age to the CalLab meeting, and he was extremely passionate about it. He always felt like it was the most important meeting to go to, especially from a business perspective. But when did you start? When did you join?
I have been on the board for over 20 years. Now, we do not have board term limits, which if you're not careful, and we try to be careful, means you get some dinosaurs like myself who've been on there too long. But it does also provide continuity. Our prior chairman, Bill Drake, and I thought that we should have limits on the chair. So the chair is now a 4-year limit, and this is my 4th year. And I think that's good because you don't want to have the same person up there for too long. One of the interesting things about the meeting, and I'm sure that Visions is the same way, is you have to plan it far enough away to be sure you can confirm your speakers. The other side of that coin is if you plan it too far out, something that you might want to plan now for a year from now may actually be archaic by then or maybe old news. So
oh yeah,
it really gets, especially with the way the industry is changing now, Elvis. So it really gets interesting because we can't wait too long, but at the same point in time, you can't start too early. So we found that July or August seems to work well, and we are a very mobile board. I'm really blessed with the kind of people that are on this board. So when something new comes up, we find a way to include it.
Mm-hmm.
You got some big names on the board for CalLab. I'm always impressed when I look at the list of people.
We do. I'm sure I'm going to miss some names, but Jerry Regal, who does all of our AV, and I will put our AV at CalLabs up against just about anybody's, with the possible exception of Ivoclar, because they have deeper pockets. Billy Drake, myself, Barbara, Michael Gundrum has just resigned. Jeff Strunk, how could I miss Jeff? He'll be our incoming chair next year. Daniela Hendrickson, Neil Russell from Canada, Harold Burdett, Reed Nunnally, and Larry Weiss are also on our board. And we also have a vendor component to our board. We have 3 main sponsors. They give very, very generously, both financially and of their time. Casey Conroy from Densply, Wayne Ledford from Ivoclar, and Argon Anton Wolf is nice enough to join us. They are a great group of people who give very, very generously of both their time and, frankly, financially.
It's a powerful group of people that no wonder the meeting is so good.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, all of our board members are very, very driven. I mean, Neil, for instance, who does a lot for this group, owns, along with a couple of partners, what you, I, and most people in this country would consider a humongous lab in Canada.
Yeah.
They're literally out of 3 different buildings.
Wow.
And they do primarily, well, I shouldn't say primarily, they're heavy ortho, which is something that doesn't happen in this country. You don't see ortho labs that robust usually, with the possible exception of Great Lakes and one other.
Elvis and I were just talking ortho on Wednesday with 2 gentlemen that we were on their podcast, and we were talking about ortho and how they're trying to bring it into light in our industry and that it's not as prevalent in the United States. And then you've got Neil, who that's pretty much everything he does, and it's just huge laboratory.
Yeah, and I really feel that ortho is undervalued. I mean, Barb, I think those folks work awfully hard and are very, very talented for a relatively little amount of money. You know, I think they're undervalued and I think they're underpaid.
They mentioned a lot how conventions, there's not an ortho. They're never kind of represented. There's no CE for ortho at Lab Day or things like that. Ortho is not represented as much as it needs to be, and they're trying to change that.
And Neil is too. He is trying to bring a little bit of an ortho component into the Cal, which I think would be healthy. We all do the same thing primarily, and I think it would be good.
So you mentioned this is your 4th year as chair of the CalLab. Does that mean you'll be emceeing next year, or?
I will be. It'll be my last year. Jeff Stronk will be taking over from that point, and Jeff will do a wonderful job. I've enjoyed this very much. I mean, the chairing the Cal Lab and being a board member on the Cal Lab has been probably the highlight of my career. I was very, very fortunate and to get into this industry, and the Cal Lab is my way of giving back. And I was fortunate enough to be voted upon by a group of my peers to be chair, and I've enjoyed the experience. And I will stay on for at least a year, maybe longer if Jeff would like me, but I'll be the past chair for at least a year or two.
Which I think is important to mentor the newer chair and sort of kind of pass on all the knowledge that you have, and knowing Jeff, he's going to do a really good job. But, everybody needs a mentor. So I'm happy that you're going to be there for at least a year.
I think you're right, Barb. I was lucky in my career in that the gentleman I mentioned earlier, Jerry Mariacker, actually kind of, when I first went to work for NDX, he kind of trained me. And then I joined the Cal Lab board. He was the chair at that period of time. And he was nice enough, and Billy Drake, who was also on the board, was nice enough to be one of my mentors. And I learned a lot from them. And I think that you certainly have to be careful about becoming mired in the past. However, I also think you have to learn and grow, and you do that on a solid foundation that was built in the past. And I'm sure Jeff's going to do a wonderful job doing that.
Hello?
Hello? Are you there? Are you there?
Hello?
Hello?
Do you hear me?
Off of it. I think he's fixed that. I
was going to say, it seemed like a different losing somebody, so I knew it wasn't the usual connection issue, but glad to have you back.
You know what it was? I joked about Barb being a problem child when she got lost, and no good deed ever goes unpunished, nor does any smart comment. So.
Yay! You get to get bleeped, Jim. I like it. If you've listened to any of our other podcasts, you'll know that I get bleeped every now and again, which I'm sure surprises the heck out of you. But yeah.
Yeah. So I was fortunate that Jerry Mariacker, who worked for the National Dentex Company, actually trained me when I was a kid, which goes to prove that you can train basically around. So after I joined the Cal Lab, after a period of time, I was asked to be on the board, and I applied to be on the board, and I was accepted, and Jerry was the chair at that point in time. So I was fortunate that both Jerry and the following chairman, Billy Drake, who was a very good friend of mine, have both been my mentors, and they provided me a good foundation. And what I was trying to get across is that you certainly don't want to get mired in the past. The other side of that coin is if you have someone around like Billy Drake, hopefully like myself, that had past experiences, been through it, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and you grow on a solid foundation. And that's what we're hoping to do. And Jeff is going to do a wonderful job. Jeff is a great public speaker. He's a knowledgeable human being. He's a great dental technician. He'll do a great job as chair of the Cal Lab. And I probably should mention, because I don't think I did, that this year's Cal Lab is going to be February 21st and 22nd, 2019. We're again going to be at the Westin on Michigan Avenue. Mm-hmm. And we hope to, as we always hope to, offer a combination of cutting-edge topics, including management, state of the industry. We're doing something a little bit different this year. We're having 3 different perspectives on the future of dentistry. And one of those perspectives will be from the clinical standpoint, and Dr. Frank Spear has been nice enough to say that he would give that talk for us. And we're looking 5 to 10 years out. What do laboratories have to do to stay relevant? What do we have to adapt to? What do we have to change? What's still going to work? From the vendor or supplier side, Anton Wolf from Argon is going to give their company's view of what's going to happen within the next 5 to 10 years. And from the laboratory perspective, Tom Dalton from National Dentex is going to give ours. We're also lucky enough to have Jeff Stronk, who is going to talk about new products, upcoming products. Tim Bertram from Bertram Dental Laboratory is going to talk about laser sintering partials, something that's pretty new. Neil Russell, and more. We've got a really, really strong selection of speakers this year. And I think that every chairman hopes to have his last year be his best year. And I think thanks to our speakers and our board of directors, I stand a very good chance of this being my best meeting ever.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. As someone that participates in multiple Spears study clubs, That's super exciting. I've never had the chance of hearing Frank Spears talk, and that's really neat. I'm excited.
He's doing something unusual this year. According to his assistant, he never talks on his birthday weekend. He spends that weekend at his home, I think, in Maui. So I am thinking that maybe our board and I can come up with a little pleasant birthday surprise for him.
You think Barb will jump out of a cake?
Nope.
How'd you know? That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Our last year, you talk about summing up Cal Lab. Last year, one of our responses from our members was that Cal Lab is where the industry gathers to brainstorm about where technology is going and to learn how to take advantage of it. And I think that probably synopsizes exactly what Cal Lab does. It tries to not only keep us current, but give our members a leg up on what's coming, what's working, what's new. And if we can keep one member from buying a piece of equipment that really doesn't work, I think that would be a wonderful thing.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, and I like the fact that it happens the same weekend as Lab Day. It's in the same town as Lab Day. And you can do both without missing anything from either one. We always go up there early, we do the Cal Lab, and then we head over to Lab Day and just make a big weekend out of it. Cal Lab has always been my favorite meeting because of the content, the closeness of it, and really the open forum. I always found that very good. Some years are better than others depending on who's participating from the audience. But I always get the most out of the open forum, as you guys mentioned, is your most popular section of the meeting.
One of the nice things I think, because it's always been my favorite, well before I was on the board, although it's still my favorite meeting, is that nobody is really trying to sell anybody anything. It is strictly peer-to-peer, one-on-one. If a vendor is talking about something or a supplier that they have the opportunity to sell, I'm sure they'd love to sell it. But there are no forced sales calls ever at Cal Lab. And it is also probably the only meeting that I'm aware of that literally almost anyone in that room can write a check. It benefits all of us to play well with others. The only place we do any kind of real selling is we do have a cocktail party vendor show place on Thursday evening. And even then, it is much more social than it is convention-like. And it's a great place to be one-on-one with the people that are supplying you with things in a friendly, almost familiar relationship, as opposed to a convention floor where people are literally almost grabbing you as you walk by.
Yeah, my famous is don't look them in the eye.
They'll stop you.
Yeah, they'll ask you where you're from or what you do or...
That's exactly right. I mean, some of us have actually kind of hesitate to go to some of the conventions because your lab gets to a certain size and you really can't walk through a hall without being grabbed, and as you said, you just don't look them in the eye. Oh, sorry, didn't see you. See you, bye.
Yeah, that vendor showcase that's at Cal Lab, it's really because it kicks off the weekend is where I get to see a lot of the people I haven't seen in a while. So you're right. It's a lot more social, catching up. How are you? What's going on? Rather than what product is new this year. I don't really need that first thing.
Yep, I agree. And you can have a cocktail and you can network and you can take a look at it. And it's not all packed in. There's a lot of rooms. There's a lot of space. I always say I think it's awesome, but I think it's special. It's a different kind of venue.
And I've made some of my best friends through the Cal Lab. I knew Barb's dad, for instance, but I really didn't know Barb. I've got to know and appreciate Barb. And and through Barb, Elvis, I've met you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that it's a great way. Again, I keep using the term peer-to-peer, but peer-to-peer, no pressure. 3 Ps. It's a nice, casual, very informative meeting, and I hope it goes on for another 93 years.
So do I.
Absolutely.
Maybe you'll be on the board one day, Elvis.
Maybe.
Or 20 years.
I got all this free time.
Barb, that is not the worst idea I've ever heard.
Well, thank you.
Actually, it's kind of a good idea.
How could people find out more? What's the website?
Yes, Barb, what's the website?
CalLab.org.
It's actually cal-lab.org.
Yes.
So CAL lab.org.
Correct.
You guys already have the program up.
Yep.
You really get a good idea of what you're going to talk about. The theme is the future, which is always exciting, things to stay up on. It's got information on the hotel. It's got information on the board of directors, and you can sign up. You can join. Like Jim mentioned, it's really not expensive for what you get. It's a great meeting. Are there other benefits members get, or is it pretty much just the meeting?
There are some other benefits. You do get the meeting, which is the primary benefit.
Absolutely.
We also have a newsletter. We also do have a member list. It's kind of a member list only goes out to members, doesn't go out to anybody else. When I have a question about something, I go, wow, I really wish I knew more about working with DSOs, or really wish I knew more about printing. I met this lady in the Tampa area. What was her name? I'll go to the member list. Oh, that's right. It was Barb. I'll call Barb. This group shares. This group really, really shares. And I think that might be one of the unheralded, if you will, benefits of this group. You can call literally almost anybody from any laboratory that is a Cal Lab member, and they will share with you.
So this is not an association you join if you're looking to save on credit card processing or shipping rates. This is an association you want to join if you want to be able to connect with peers and have one of the greatest meetings every year. That's the benefit of Cal Lab.
No, you're absolutely correct. That the benefit of a Cal Lab is you are with your peers, talking to your peers. And by peers, I mean clinical, supplier, and laboratory. It's you don't have that option very often.
You also mentioned international. Do you have a lot of labs, other than Canada, that have joined?
We do. We have a laboratory from Mexico that comes every year. We have some folks from the UK that come probably every other year. I think it was 2 years ago, Barb, the British Dental Laboratory Association.
What, do they come on years when the IDS is not happening?
We do see a little bit of an attendance fluctuation, and the lab from Mexico comes every year. Luis de Turba is his name, I think, if I pronounce that correct. I hope I did. And internationally, we do see more attendance on off years, yes.
That's awesome that people from not even the area are coming. That's quite a trip.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's almost like walking into your neighborhood restaurant or corner bar where you're with your friends and you can sit down and have a nice conversation and learn a lot. I mean,
yeah.
You hear people say they go to conventions and they'll learn more in the bar or they'll learn more in the restaurant. Well, that's what the Cal Lab meeting is. The Cal Lab meeting is the restaurant. You learn while you're there.
Yep. I've learned a lot in the years I've been going. Appreciate you joining us, Mr. Gorgol, CDT. Great conversation, and enjoyed learning more about you and about Cal Lab. And I encourage any of our listeners, if they're interested, checking out the website and signing up. And Barb and I are always there, so you'll see us. If anything, you'll get us out of it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
If anybody wants more information about the Cal Lab and they don't want to just call the office, they're certainly welcome to call me at my laboratory at any time.
Awesome. And you'll be able to get your contact information. We'll make you a guest page on voicesfromthebench.com, and people can find you via that website. So thank you so much, Jim. I appreciate it.
Thank you for including. I am truly appreciative. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. So a big thank you to Jim Gorgol, who is chair of Cal Lab. And if anybody knows anything about Cal Lab, it's an amazing organization, one of the oldest or the oldest in our industry. I am actually on the board as well. And I see what goes into the meetings and how hard the board works to make the meetings amazing. So check it out. It's February this year.
This is Jim's last meeting. So let's hope Jeff Strunk can carry on the level of excellence that we've come to expect from this group. Be sure to check out the show notes of this episode for all the links to Jim's lab and Cal Lab.
Thank you, Jim. You're amazing. I love you to death.
And just a reminder to everyone coming to Visions 21 next week, make sure you bring your Voices from the Bench t-shirts that you got last summer. This is especially for you, Barb.
Yes.
We would love to see some of these in Vegas. And if you're in Vegas for Visions 21 and you're interested in being on the podcast, we are just doing some shorter interviews for whoever's willing to come on and talk about why they love the industry that they're in. We welcome everybody. So send us an email if you're interested, or find Barb and I at the convention and we'll line it up. We are there for the meetings too, so the recordings will only be going on during the breaks and after the meeting.
Har har. After the meeting.
And I don't do anything before the meetings.
Just wait. Real interesting. And thank you for reminding me to bring my shirt. I appreciate the reminder to bring my shirt, because I know that at the triathlon I forgot my shirt. And you know what? Martha and Matt and who else? Chris, they all brought their shirts. So thank you, you guys. So yeah. I'll bring my shirt. I'll be a good egg. I promise.
And speaking of the triathlon, believe it or not, people are already talking about this year's triathlon. And I think I've already worked out a group.
Good for you. Cool.
So Stuart Steinbach is going to swim. Sean Nowak is going to bike, and I'm going to run. This early, we have something lined up.
You're going to do the 6 mile? You're going to do the Olympic, the big boy one?
Yes, I think I'm going to put my big pants on. I'm going to do that one.
Good for you. All right. I'm liking that.
I'll see what I can do about not breaking any bones or coming down with double flu between now and then. Let's see if we can keep it a good year.
I think I may put my hat in for the Olympic this year. I think I'm ready to go all the way. I want to be that girl.
All by yourself?
Hell yeah, by myself.
Damn straight.
Yep. I want to be that athlete. The only thing is this, swim. I got to practice to swim, but I can do the run and the bike. I say that now without breaking my clavicle. Just saying.
So before we go, we talk a lot about the Visions 21 meeting next week. But the week after that is the Voices of Dentistry meeting. Now, this is a dental podcasting meeting. Barb and I were invited to attend and hopefully record some dentists while we're there. Let me just say that dental podcasters are a great group that is full of sarcastic humor, so you can see why I fit in so well. Dr. Alan Mead from the Dental Hacks podcast, kind of the inspiration for this podcast, asked if we wanted him to record any plugs for Voices of Dentistry. Well, let's just say that I had a few suggestions for him.
Hi, my name is Alan Mead. I'm one of the co-hosts of the Dental Hacks podcast. Elvis has asked me to record a few, I don't know, you might call them spots for the upcoming Voices of Dentistry meeting. It's in Scottsdale, Arizona, just a few weeks away, January 25th and 26th. We're having it at the Doubletree Resort. It's an awesome place, fantastic meeting. You can come meet all your favorite dental podcasters. But let me read a couple of things Elvis thought I should read. So here we go. We got okay. Since we rely on our labs to work miracles, we also rely on them to show us how to make a good podcast. Okay, Elvis, thanks. Appreciate that. Here's another one. We can send them a bad impression, but they leave a good impression with their podcast. They mark our margins and leave a mark when doing their podcast. I can kind of see where this is going. Anyhow, I'm going to tell you about the Voices of Dentistry. It's a really innovative meeting. You get to sit down and speak with all of your favorite dental podcasters. You can record a podcast with them. We have an amazing speaker lineup. But more importantly, we have some really great networking. We have a great party. We're even going to have karaoke. Unbelievable. Elvis and Barb will be doing a live podcast during one of the breaks from the live podcasting stage. I'm very much looking forward to that. I'm actually looking forward to throwing things at Elvis because he made me read those things. So again, voicesofdentistry.com. Coming up in January 25th, 26th in Scottsdale, Arizona. Go get your ticket at voicesofdentistry.com, and we will see you there. And thanks a lot, Elvis. Appreciate that.
Hey, I appreciate it, Alan. And thanks for inviting Barb and I to Voices of Dentistry. And also thanks for having us on your podcast a few months ago. I will include a link to our interview on the Dental Hacks podcast on this episode's show notes.
Okay, everybody, have a great week. Work hard, play hard, and we will see you in Vegas.
Thanks a lot, everybody. We appreciate it. Until next time, have a good one. Bye.
Bye. You to be a girl, so I'm not including you.